So oftentimes in the school environment, we as teachers and management might have visitors come into the school, parents, inspectors, various other visitors, and they might see children playing catching games, playing with balls and beanbags. They might see children dressed up as builders and various other professions. They might see children playing with puppets. They might think, hold on a second, this is a school, this is a learning environment. I should see children learning, desk learning and things like that. But we as teachers and management should be able to counter that by saying for children, especially in the early years, play is learning. Several learning concepts that are evident in learning are also evident in play. So this child here is able to pretend in a secure context. He's talking on a mobile phone. Who do you think he's talking to? What kind of conversations is he having? We see him in a role play area as well. This little girl down here is experimenting with finger paint. Who knows what she's creating? Do you think this is her first time finger painting? She's being allowed to be creative in her play. We know that play allows us to work collaboratively with others. Here we see two little boys working together to build a little railroad train set. And finally, play, like learning, allows for an element of choice to be available. Here we see three little children choosing to play together with cars and various other plastic things. We see one boy that is chosen to play by himself, and finally, that girl standing up has chosen to take a step back from the act of learning and just observe for a while. Play also allows a certain amount of informal communication to take place during participants. These boys might be able to talk about things and talk in ways in which a normal classroom environment might not facilitate that kind of conversation. So children's literacy, numeracy, and oral communication certainly would hopefully be enhanced as a result of play and collaborative play. So play itself is a very broad concept. The kind of play we're aiming for in the school is something called quality play, that the educational psychologist Ferry Labors talked about as quality play. So just like in the photograph of these two young children playing with the bubbles, we need to understand that one of the qualities of quality play is the degree of emotional well-being in the child. During quality play, which is play that learning will take place as a result of, children will appear at ease, they'll show self-confidence and act spontaneously, just like the children having a ball of a time playing with those bubbles. Another aspect of quality play is that the level of environment. So during quality play, children will be very engaged with what they're playing, and as a result, the deep level learning will take place. But this level of involvement requires two things: that we, as the teachers, set up a challenging and stimulating environment for the children to play in, and also that the child is exposed to tasks that are intrinsically motivated, that they themselves want to be performing. So as we've already talked about, play allows a certain element of choice. Within this structured environment that the teacher has created, children are allowed to choose activities that they themselves want to do. And the best kind of classroom, like this one, has many different activities, many different kinds of learning, and hopefully children should be able to remain in free flow, in flow, for the longest possible time without any interruptions. Children are able to act creatively during quality play. So this girl we've already seen is experimenting with the finger paint. So because children set the rules during quality play, there is no right or wrong. It's not draw a snowman or else. Children are allowed to experiment and make mistakes and hopefully learn from those mistakes. And we as teachers should value, with the idea of active learning and curriculum for excellence, we should be assessing the process, not the product. So no longer is it just a case of test, test, test. We need to realize that the processes children go through, the learning processes, are vitally important as well for children's development. So we've learned about what the children are doing during play, so touching more upon what the role of the adult is during play. We've already said that the adult needs to create the right environment, create an environment that is challenging and stimulating. So the quote, "The room may be small, but children's imaginations are not." So here we see, as we've already said, this boy talking on the phone. Who knows what he's talking about? Maybe he's trying to pretend like he's the powerful adults he sees in his life, his mother, his father, texting and communicating via phones. And we have a couple of girls playing dress-up in the back. They might be dressing up as princesses. And they might, so this ties into what the Curriculum for Excellence says teachers should do. So it says teachers should plan purposeful, spontaneous play that engages and challenges children to think and respond by becoming actively engaged in real life or imaginary experiences. So that boy could be talking about, something as mundane as ordering a pizza, and those girls could be dressing up as the Knight of the Round Table and Camelot. So play really does not limit what a child is allowed to experience. So during play, we've already talked about that the adult has to create the environment, but actually during the element of play, the adult needs to be active and engaging with the participants, the children. So the adult, let's take the example of a child playing with building materials, Lego or blocks or something like that. So one example, one positive element that the teacher could do is show genuine interest. Show the children that what they are doing is valued by adults. So a simple question is would you tell me about the house you are building? That shows the children that the teacher is engaged with their play, with their learning, and allows for a discussion to happen. The adult can clarify ideas, so perhaps the learning of the child might be going a bit astray, so perhaps in an early years level, the adult can say, is your house going to have a door? Perhaps a primary 1 or a primary 2 might not think about the abstract idea of a house having a door, so we can sort of steer and guide children along the correct learning path. We can simply put, a teacher should offer encouragement. You'll have to build me a house one day. It's a simple response, but the child will pick up on that, and their levels of self-efficacy will be raised as a result of the two-way mutual respect between pupil and student. And finally, asking open-ended questions. Who's going to live in that house? That doesn't limit the child's response. Again, because children's imaginations are so diverse, so big, it allows a range of discussion to happen, a range of answers to occur. So that is during play as well. So we've seen how the adult can engage with children, but a more academic side to the role of the adults is to observe and monitor children's progression and achievements, assess their progress, set up new challenges as appropriate. So here we see various examples of adults actively engaging and assessing children's learning. And thankfully, the more scientific aspect of observing and monitoring and planning for progression is evidenced in this graph. So here we have time and level of difficulty. So just like in learning, play, we need to set out tasks that are age appropriate, level appropriate for our students. So giving a primary 7 the job of tracing the alphabet, that would hopefully fall under the too easy category. Whereas they're just the same, giving a primary 1 the role of dunking a basketball on a basketball hoop, that's far too challenging. So we as teachers need to aim for this green bit, the zone of proximal development that the educational psychologist Vygotsky talked about, the trying to plan learning that steadily progresses children's learning. So here we have the new concept, the teaching of the adult taking place, and that involves a certain amount of difficulty. And this line here is where the child is trying to make sense of that new material being taught. So the educational psychologist Bruner extended this idea by talking about scaffolding. So here, both these activities, the teacher doesn't just sit back and let the child get on with it, but they sort of use small steps to progress children's learning. So what Vygotsky and Bruner talked about is how we can observe and assess and plan. The cyclical nature of planning comes into effect, where we observe and monitor, and therefore we can plan material that is better suited to the learning and development of the children. So in the old days, as I said, assessment would simply involve a test. But nowadays, with all this theory coming into practice and the idea of active, engaging literacy coming into practice, we can recognize that there are various methods of assessment that we can use in both learning and in play. So facilitating discussions, we talked about, the idea of children's imaginations being large. So if we're able to facilitate group discussions, we can sort of get an idea of what the children have been learning as a result of play. By observing, we can see, again, we can sort of set a benchmark where we understand the children to be, and using that material, using that data, we can plan future lessons that hopefully progress the learning of the children. By setting tasks which require children to use certain skills or apply ideas, we can see, have they grasped this certain element, this basic sort of fine or gross motor skill? And finally, asking questions in a way that encourages pupils to use the skills they've learned in order to answer the questions. And that should show, again, that children have been learning. So here we have the four concepts of learning. We have physical learning, social learning, language learning, and cognitive learning. And with these sort of prompts, with these ways of assessing, all of those four concepts can be assessed. And thankfully, we have the lovely Curriculum for Excellence, which allows us to assess against a standard rubric. So here we see the stages, and this is a maths and numeracy stage. And so by the early years, roughly the end of primary 1, we should hope to see that children are developing their awareness of how money is used and can recognize a range of coins. By the end of P4, roughly, we should be able to see that children can use money to pay for items and can work out how much change they should receive. So with the idea of the theory coming into practice and the assessing, we as teachers can assess children based on a certain standard. And we can show this to parents and inspectors and visitors that don't agree with the idea of play, because we can show them that in a real-life classroom, these are examples of my placement school, my child that partook in, we can show them that play actually demonstrates certain Curriculum for Excellence experiences and outcomes. So in the context of gym, where my child study target was playing a game of catch with a colleague, I felt her social, physical, and language and cognitive learning was enhanced as a result of this social two-way communication with the child, and her motor skills were enhanced. And I feel she demonstrated the health and well-being experience and outcome within and beyond my place of learning. I'm enjoying daily opportunities to participate in physical activities and sport. Another learning context that I feel my child demonstrated learning as a result of play was during Golden Time, when she was dressed up as a builder, running around building things for people, making transactions. I feel, again, the social side of it was she was having conversations with people, she was using her language, and she was using her brain, and she demonstrated the maths and numeracy experience and outcomes, that she was able to develop her awareness of how money is used and can recognize a range of coins. So she was paying and giving change for these micro transactions that she was doing as a builder. And finally, the third real-life practical learning experience I observed was during Golden Time, when she was playing with the puppets. So she was having social conversations that involved language and thinking skills. And I feel she demonstrated one of the literacy experiences and outcomes. So when she engaged with others, she knew when and how to listen, when to talk, how much to say, when to ask questions, and how to respond with respect. So she was able to develop her relevant conversation and listening skills through play, through puppets. So here we've seen maths, health and well-being, and literacy areas of the curriculum have been tackled and have been challenged and have been responded to by the children in the form of play. So finally, whenever we're talking about play or social learning, we need to harken back to the days of the man that first challenged the idea of desk learning, the educational psychologist Jean Piaget, the Swiss man, who was a real challenger of this idea of just sitting down in rows, and actually created the idea of social learning. So he said, the principal goal of education in the schools should be creating men and women who are capable of doing new things. We've already talked about that in the creative aspect. Not simply repeating what other generations have done. Men and women who are creative, we've been talking about that, inventive and discoverers. Sounds like play, doesn't it? Who can be critical and verify and not accept everything they are offered. So we, as teachers and management, should be able to think about theorists, assess against the curriculum, using our own professional integrity, using our own professional skills, the inputs that we've talked about, using our educational skills as the process. Hopefully the output should be children who are more well-rounded, who are social, who know how to experience social learning through play. So certainly, before I started this course, if someone were to ask me, do you think children can play by learning, I wouldn't have known knowing how to respond. But as a result of thinking about all this theory and thinking about the processes and even experiencing play in my classroom setting, if you were to ask me now, do I believe children can learn through play? Well, Piaget's saying it. Yes, I do. What are my references? Thank you very much.
Okay. Well done.